Welcome back. We're on the final part of episode 69, which means the fantasy booking WrestleMania. And the way that this works, as I mentioned before, we are going to have specialty posts that are all dedicated to WrestleMania up until the review of WrestleMania itself. And this is the first fantasy booking that we're going to do. It's basically the same as what we usually do, where we talk about, why I would have done this differently and they got that wrong and all that other kind of crap. And this is where we actually have to own up and plan something a little bit more detailed. Instead of going match by match and saying, for instance, on the last card of the Elimination Chamber, well, I would have done Daniel Bryan and Kane outside of the match and include The Miz and Antonio Cesaro in it. That's, one singular thing, but how would you book the whole card? We have to take an entire card and keep everything reasonable, where if we only had the past few months and we had a lot of restrictions based off of what they currently are planning, obviously some of the matches they had planned ahead of time last year or maybe 10 months ago or 9 months ago, so on and so forth. So you can't do anything really where you would go, well, what would I book for WrestleMania 29? It would be Stone Cold Steve Austin against CM Punk. All right, well, he's not ready to wrestle. Can't do it. Or you obviously can't do something like I would book Mr. Perfect against somebody because he isn't
I
alive.
would. I would just dig him up, tie him to like some sort of strings, and have someone just move him like a puppet.
Mr. Perfect on a pole match.
Yeah, definitely. Heading on a pole match.
So we have to
Do
keep
we have Vince Russo on this podcast?
we have to keep all that in mind and book everything for WrestleMania. And this is where you can't overbook and not have any time to include any of this kind of stuff. Now we don't have to go into the intricacies of I would give 15 minutes to this segment and all that. It's kind of implied that you would balance it out. So I'll go first here. And
You always go first, Tony. It's like you're the host or something.
right. It's a foreign concept, I know.
Hello, exactly.
Uh, what I would have for the YouTube pre-show is AJ Lee against Trish Stratus. And the reason behind that is the Divas division is awful right now. So I would not want to waste any time on the actual card with Caitlyn defending her title against Cameron or something. And really, there's no point in doing it. The only person that they're showing any kind of purpose for is AJ, but she's not even wrestling. So if you have Trish going in as the Hall of Famer, and she obviously has no problems coming back and doing matches for WrestleMania because she's done it in the past, have the two of those face each other, and you include some kind of a little stipulation for later on in the match with the World Heavyweight Championship, which I'll get to. Um, Basically, would just kind of be a throwaway thing, and the only reason that I have it as the pre-show instead of on the show itself is because the other matches are a little bit more important, and maybe having somebody going into the Hall of Fame wrestling on the pre-show will get people to watch it. What do you guys think of what that would end up being?
I don't see it as feasible.
Well, not this isn't whether or not WWE would do it. Is do you think that it would be a halfway decent idea?
It would be a decent idea, but I don't think it's WWE. I think it's Trish. She would want to be on the main pay-per-view card. I
Right.
don't think she'd want to be on the
Yeah.
YouTube pre-show.
Yeah, but fuck her.
I
I
would
would
love
If
fuck
she
her.
her.
wants to be, be complaining about that, then oh well.
Well, I mean, you're also considering she's a Hall of Famer, and
Yeah.
what would it say to just have the Hall of Famer on the pre-show?
See,
And also AJ's kind of like their darling right now.
I
Yeah.
would want to do that to boost the pre-show more than anything else.
Oh, I'm totally in agreement. That would help the pre-show, and it would keep the women off the pay-per-view.
Right.
Not sounding sexist here. Hate to sound sexist, but the women on I don't think the term the women don't draw. I don't think that's a sort of an astute term in regards to the fact that they don't have a big enough women's roster to actually draw with. You don't have characters that people give a crap about because all
Um,
the characters are gone.
the first match of the show itself would be Randy Orton as a heel against Sheamus. And the only reason I really have this is because it seemed like they were kind of leaning towards this, and I would have had that planned much ahead of time and everything. I wouldn't actually do it. And there's a lot of stuff on this card that I'm bringing up that I wouldn't do if you told me a year ago to plan it. But this is taking into account they want Sheamus as somebody who has a decent match and isn't thrown in with multiple people, and Randy Orton has a purpose behind him, and so on and so forth. The storyline behind it would be that one of them, probably Orton, would eliminate Sheamus from the Royal Rumble. Sheamus would eliminate Orton in the Elimination Chamber. Orton would turn heel. This would be their first match together. They'd have a gimmick rematch at Extreme Rules, so on and so forth. Actually, instead of going match by match, I'll just kind of do the rest of the card, and then we'll backtrack. Then I would have, this is kind of split 50-50. It would depend on the time. If I had the time, I would have Team Hell No facing each other. Kind of what we might be getting this year. It just kind of makes sense. They put so much into this duo that having the two of them face each other, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. If not,
it's on my card too.
right. If not, then they would be included in this tag team championship turmoil match, wherein everybody in WWE who doesn't really have much to do would be thrown into this match where the titles are vacated and the Shield has been creating kind of an anarchy, and there's like a gang warfare going on. Other people are beginning to team up with people that they really weren't a tag team beforehand.
Sorry, someone's getting upset. I think he doesn't like the Shield. That's probably what it is.
He doesn't like the anarchy of it.
Yeah, he hates anarchy.
But it would get kind of in the situation where people are looking out for each other's backs, and that's why they become a tag team. Some of the tag teams that I would create would be Brodus Clay and R-Truth. I don't think that Brodus Clay and Tensai really makes a whole lot of sense.
They think it makes sense because they're two big guys.
Right, that's their whole reasoning for it. I don't like it, so I wouldn't be doing that. I would re-tag up Alex Riley and The Miz. I would bring, if we could, Ted DiBiase and Michael McGillicuddy together. Kind of do that Fortunate Sons angle. And it would include a lot of other tag teams in WWE. Rhodes Scholars, Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara, Primetime Players, Justin Gabriel and Tyson Kidd, 3MB, The Usos, Team Cobra, Epico and Primo, Unico and Camacho. As many of these as you possibly could. And another one is, I think Xavier Woods would be a really good tag team partner for Kofi Kingston. And that would bring him onto the main roster. So that would be for the tag team championship. And that would come after the singles match, so it kind of boosts up the audience a little bit.
So would the singles match be a stall before the tag titles? Like, basically they're having a match. As soon as the match gets to the end and there's basically a draw happens, they immediately have to defend the tag titles.
Well, no, it would be like start off the pay-per-view with the singles match between Orton and Sheamus, and then build up to having like a chaotic match. And then I kind of book my cards that way. You go like a little bit of a bathroom break here and there, and then you build up, and then you go back down, and then you build up and go back down. Which is why the next match would be United States Championship between Antonio Cesaro defending his title against the All-American Jack Swagger, who would be a babyface, not a current racist gimmick and all that. Pretty self-explanatory. I've talked about it before. Another one to build it back up again is what I'm calling the Big Man Buffet. And it sounds very stupid, but it works with the Big Hungry gimmick. This would be kind of a super heavyweight off, where Big Show, Mark Henry, Great Khali, Big E Langston, Tensai, Ezekiel Jackson, and Ryback would all be in this big feud together about who is the dominant person in WWE that can really tower above everybody else. I don't know yet if I would make it like a scramble match or something, or just the finals of a tournament where the other people are lumberjacks. But I would also include David Otunga, and the reason behind this is David Otunga would be that heel that thinks that he's bigger than he really is, and he would just get his ass kicked. Uh, he doesn't really serve much of a purpose on the WrestleMania card otherwise, so it's basically just somebody to get his ass kicked. And this is mostly there to showcase Ryback beating Big Show above anybody else. Uh, that would lead to a somewhat of a bathroom break where Christian has the Peep Show and Brad Maddox has the Brad Maddox Experience. Maybe they're doing something like interviewing fans in the crowd. Maybe they're cutting a promo or interviewing people for later on in the match or in the pay-per-view. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. I just don't want to see another Be a Star ad and more of that bullshit. I know that WWE would want to do it because they advertise the hell out of stuff, but if that's going to make the difference between seeing only the necessary commercials for we want to do a WWE network and we're going to have WrestleMania in New Orleans next year, and then we don't have to see the Deadliest Catch promo. I'd rather see something with Brad Maddox and Christian. That leads us into the World Heavyweight Championship match. Dolph Ziggler, accompanied by AJ Lee, against challenger Chris Jericho, accompanied by Trish Stratus. Now, Trish and Jericho have worked together in the past, and they're both the Canadian connection kind of a thing. Ziggler and AJ are already a duo, and I would have Ziggler going in as the champion and retaining the championship for the match of the night, essentially. That leads us to the Intercontinental Championship. Alberto Del Rio challenges Wade Barrett for his title. Del Rio would be a babyface just because they seem like they wanted to do that anyway. I wouldn't have done it if you would have given me a whole year to plan, but maybe Del Rio wins the title, and that kind of changes up the sourness of Dolph Ziggler retaining. Then we have the streak match. Undertaker with Triple H faces Brock Lesnar with Paul Heyman. And the reason I would have that is because I do not want to see Triple H and Brock Lesnar again. And there really aren't a whole lot of people that could face The Undertaker that would make any sense. So why not have Triple H kind of be there to offset Paul Heyman? Essentially what this is a variation of what we're going to get this year. Because I'm sure we're going to get Triple H with Vince McMahon against Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. And Vince will just stop Paul Heyman from interfering in the match or something like that. It'd basically be the same except for Undertaker and Brock Lesnar face each other. Then we have a Hall of Fame recap for a bathroom break, and we end off the pay-per-view with a triple threat for the World WWE Championship. CM Punk, The Rock, and John Cena. Obviously, John Cena wins the title. Pretty much that's the way it would be. Now, as I mentioned before 2 or 3 times already, this is not what I would do if I had an entire year to plan for it, but this is if I had a lot of restrictions and essentially if I were booking from Survivor Series onward. So what do you guys think? Would that be a card that you guys would be interested in seeing? Do you think that's better than what we might get this year? Worse? What do you think?
I think it's better than what we're gonna get.
Yeah.
I still don't know if that's the best card I would have come up with, though. I have to be honest.
I don't think it would be the
I think
best.
it's still a little too similar to what they got going on.
I'm in agreement with Mark on that one, and the whole big man buffet match, I just don't like it.
Sounds like a sandwich break.
Well,
yeah, you know what? So for me, that would be my piss break.
that actually would be that part of the night where if people didn't go to the bathroom during the U.S. title match, they could do it then.
Yeah,
That's that real center point where everybody's getting a little tired of stuff. So it doesn't really matter. You're not losing anything, but everybody builds right back up to the World Heavyweight title. But as I said, this is, if I waited another week to do this segment and I had a day or so more to think about it, I'd probably think of something completely different.
I'm sorry. What was your World Heavyweight title match again?
Jericho and Ziggler.
And what did you do with Del Rio?
He was in the Intercontinental Championship against.
That's right. That I'm pretty good with. I really think Ziggler and Jericho is what they should have went with. It looks like that's what they had an idea doing. I don't know why they pulled away from it.
I think that they can do better as a singles match where they don't need the title.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's still a good spot for Del Rio. I think him and Barrett could absolutely have a good match.
So move on to your cards. What do you guys have? Who wants to go first?
I'll go
I'll
first.
go.
Nope.
I do you want to
You want to rock, paper, scissors for it?
go? Okay, go for it.
Okay.
One, two,
Rock,
three, shoot.
paper, scissors, rock.
Paper.
Okay.
Okay. My card is rather different. At first, I didn't understand the terms of this game, so I just gave the normal card.
Yeah, you'd like I'd have Daniel Bryan and Kane, I'd have Rock and Cena, I'd have CM Punk and Undertaker. I'm reading this and I'm like, what? Is
Yeah. It's because the terms wasn't actually explained properly, and then we had to talk, and now I came up with something rather different. Right. So basically, what I would start off, I'd start the show that my pre-show match would be a championship scramble match for the tag team championships. Now the teams would include Team Hell No, um, Primetime Players versus the 3MB, the Usos versus the New Age Outlaws, who are basically making an appearance for one night only, versus Brodus and Tensai versus Reigns and Ambrose of
no
the Shield.
Rollins?
Rollins isn't in the match. He will be used later on, but he's not in that. He probably is at ringside now. I put it in Championship Scramble rules because I think that match is so underrated. The way that it's used and the way that the titles are utilized in those matches, I thought it was an awesome, awesome little gimmick. So that would get the adrenaline pumping for the crowd, and that would lead us on to match number 2, which it would be the IC title match. We would have Wade Barrett versus Sheamus for the Intercontinental Championship. I like their little feud. I think it works for them, and I'd rather have Sheamus go for the IC Championship. Would he win? Not really. I'd give him sort of a notch for Barrett. And it's two strong guys literally going to be tearing each other apart, which is what you want to see. It's the grounds for a bigger feud later on. Now, match 3 would be a ladder match for the United States Championship, where we'd have Cesaro versus Swagger. So that's where I've sort of led in with Tony's idea. Basically, Cesaro would be cutting a promo beforehand, stating that he's beaten all the Americans, and then you'd have Swagger come out and state that he hasn't beaten him. That would lead on to him versus Swagger. Swagger being more ruthless, but also more of a baby face.
Curious though, why a ladder match?
Because I want the thing with Cesaro, and the thing about his character is he's had literally, I think he's had like one last man standing match, but he's never had that sort of big gimmick match with anybody, and I think he's missing that. And it'll be nice to see him work a different style than he's used to. Well, not than he's used to, because I've seen him actually work this sort of style before, but
It's fresh for WWE's eyes.
Yeah, shows how versatile he is. And I think he'll put on a fucking grade A match here with Cesaro and Swagger. It'd be a sleeper. One of those matches where you wouldn't expect it to be a match of the year candidate, but it could easily be. Match 5 would be a Divas match. AJ versus Natalia. So this is sort of our piss break. We've got the momentum was so high. Now we're bringing it down a little bit, bring the pace down. People can go and get their concessions, gonna have the piss breaks. And that will lead us up to match number 6, Undertaker versus Lesnar versus Rock. It's contract versus the streak. So whoever basically gets pinned here ends up, so say like if the two men, which is the stipulation in this match, Lesnar and Rock, they will have to battle it out to sort of fight to pin Taker, which sort of even ups the odds a little bit. Taker can work this match rather easily because it has rest periods, because it's a 3-man match. You've got Lesnar's Smash Mouth style versus The Rock's rather sort of edgy, slow sort of pace going on there. It'll be something that everyone wants to see. The crowd will basically go nuts for it. This one would either end. I don't think I would actually end it with The Undertaker losing his streak. I may end it with The Rock getting pinned, so that The Rock basically ends up leaving the WWE for the foreseeable future. So leave the door open for him when he wants to come back. Just not too soon. Match 8 for the World Heavyweight Championship would have Alberto Del Rio versus Dolph Ziggler. I would have Ziggler go the legitimate route, because I believe that Ziggler, it's about time that he turned babyface. And I would have him cash the MRTV in and state that he's going one-on-one with Del Rio at Mania. We can have him do it because Del Rio egged him on, or have him do it because he doesn't want to sort of win that way. He's had this briefcase for so long, he wants to make it mean something.
Now, is this babyface Del Rio with the title, or is it heel Del Rio?
I would say babyface Del Rio, and I would have Ziggler go into this match as the heel, and then transition over to the face by the end of it. And have sort of Langston sort of come in and, ask him what he's doing, give his props to sort of Del Rio. It could be sort of the typical Rock versus Hogan at the end, where, they sort of, these guys respected each other enough, and it led to a huge load of dismay between the others. Now, that leads on to match number 8, the WWE title match. CM Punk versus Zack Ryder.
What?
Let me tell you why.
Dace would go nuts right now.
Yeah, there's a huge load of momentum that Zack Ryder had building up prior to this. And as you basically stated, I've been given time to book this. I would set right what the WWE have done wrong. They pissed all over the guy because he's not a machine guy. He got over on his own back. No one had to write promos for him to get him over. No one had to get his character over. He did that all by himself. He lost the United States Championship, and I would basically, because Punk had this, and again, we're sort of throwing away the whole Rock versus Punk Royal Rumble situation. I would have had Punk go over the Rock at the Rumble. And I would have done this right. I would have had Punk use the streak, the championship streak, the fact that he's held the championship for so long, to elevate another guy. And my opinion, that guy would be Ryder. Basically, would have had Ryder somehow be a sleeper at the Rumble, a guy that no one expected to win, wins the Rumble. Punk's basically telling him that he's never, the guy's never amounted to nothing. That every time he's actually gotten close to winning anything, the real sort of, this guy's the real underdog, basically. And would get to the point where we would build Ryder up to the extent where he's a threat, because they think, actually, this guy may actually win. But he's not that much of a threat that he's no longer the underdog. He's still the underdog in this match. We go in it. I think it would have been a clinic, nice little back and forth, with the end having Ryder hitting the Rough Rider for the win out of nowhere, beating Punk, and the crowd going fucking nuts. I think people would go ape shit over this. And then you have your new sort of babyface champion, the guy that Punk basically gets over with this over a year long reign as WWE champion, and the guy that will carry the company, or the trial guy that would carry the company and see if he could be a rather credible champion. That's in my eyes, that's the way I would book it. And as I said, a lot of people have been giving Ryder a lot of heat over the fact that he's a bit pissed off about his place in the card. If I was in his position, I would be pissed off too, because no matter how much this guy tries, they're not giving him a break. and they're doing it on purpose. They literally buried him. You know what? The worst part was that he could have literally been sodomized on camera by Kane, and he still would have basically just it. It was like they just took the piss with him. So this is what I would do. I feel that would work. I feel that he's the only legitimate guy out of the entire roster, apart from Kofi Kingston, who has the claim to be the guy that Punk could elevate using his streak as WWE champion. But that's me. And again, this is if I had enough time to book it, if I had enough time to lock these guys in, and if they gave me a chance to elevate someone. And it's all about building stars, and that's what we've got to look at in the long run, because the company at the moment, they're looking at short-term investments, which by the time these guys are gone, we're still going to be in the shit, basically.
Now, did you include? There were some names that I don't remember if they were on there. Randy Orton,
No, I didn't include Orton.
John Cena.
I didn't include Cena, and there was a reason why I didn't include Orton or Cena into this. For me, I would have had a situation where Cena's basically been defeated by Punk at some point, and Cena would have been taking time off because Cena is banged up at the moment. Orton, I think, is one injury away from nearly ending his own career, so I would have given him sort of time off. I would have given enough time to the guys that are included in this pay-per-view. And I don't feel that Orton's big enough anymore to be the guy that needs to be included at WrestleMania.
And no Jericho, Big Show, Ryback, Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. No Jericho.
Rey Mysterio.
I may, for me, I probably, if to think about it, I may like sort of reunite Big Show and Jericho and add them into the tag team match, or even, for Barrett's Intercontinental title match, add someone into that. But that's just going on the stretch. And again, it's just due to the fact that one, Jericho's only back for a short time. I think it's unfair that he just comes back for a payday when you've got a huge roster depth. You've got all these guys who have been working day in and day out that should be basically being elevated now to those type spots.
Jericho is full-time when he's there.
He is to a certain extent. Just because you work house shows, you can say the same thing about The Rock.
No, The Rock doesn't work house shows. There was a house show in Poughkeepsie, New York, a no-shit town, and Chris Jericho was there.
No, I'm saying that, you could say The Rock works more than Taker. Taker only works Manias. And The Rock's basically, they're longer than Taker. But it doesn't justify him basically being there collecting a Mania paycheck. The same
Taker
thing
just did a house show.
No, but you know what justifies him getting a Mania paycheck? The thousands upon thousands upon thousands of buys that Mania is going to get because he's on the card.
No, I agree. I agree the fact that that's their way of thinking, but I would rather take a chance because I feel that the roster at this point in time, but
what you don't get is all these people are buying this pay-per-view, and then that's more eyes seeing all these other matches that you can showcase these guys. You can do both.
Yeah, you can have somebody like Zack Ryder get a big New York kind of welcome match, but not have him in the main event necessarily. Maybe he gets some. The reason why
I'm sticking by that because I believe you need to elevate somebody else. You need to get the roster at a point where you're making new stars. They're not building new stars anymore. And
I don't agree. I don't agree with that theory at all anymore. 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, absolutely, but I don't agree with that at all anymore. They've made Ziggler, they've made Punk, they're making Cesaro, they changed Del Rio's character.
What have they done with Ziggler?
He's the Money in the Bank champion who's getting ready to cash it in. He has a whole stable surrounding him now.
They have buried the guy. Ever since he's went over.
Oh, buried the guy? I thought he's on my TV like 5 times a week. I thought he had a YouTube show.
He's not on YouTube anymore because his show's been cancelled. They've buried the guy to the point, right? They always do this with the Money in the Bank guys. They bury them to the point where the guy cashes in and it doesn't really mean...
You are over-exaggerating the buried. He's not being buried.
He is being buried.
Okay.
What has Ziggler done after defeating Cena?
Oh,
What has
how
Ziggler
could you
done?
just brush that off? Defeating John Cena at the end of a pay-per-view?
Yeah, because it didn't matter afterwards because Cena basically moves
Oh,
on
you're such a
without the
smark.
Brock.
Let it go.
I am not such a spark. It's literally the truth. Okay, think about it this way. What has Ziggler done recently?
What has
He had
Ziggler
a
done?
match with Kofi
Uh,
Kingston on a
he has
pay-per-view that was
he has a whole
unskippable.
stable surrounding him.
Yeah, and what have they done?
Didn't they just beat down someone this past week? Didn't Big E just lay out somebody? I can't remember who the hell it was. I don't think I even watched Raw this week.
Oh, who the hell was it?
I'm not wrong though,
No,
right? He laid out
and now
somebody.
Kofi Kingston at a pay-per-view, and it's because the creative team have no idea what to do with Ziggler at this point because they want to take the focus and focus on the guys that they're building up towards Mania. You have, right, a guy who's a perfect example that you could have had him cash in numerous amounts of times and look
Burhan,
legitimate while doing it, but they kept putting other people into that spot because they wanted to go a different direction. And I'm not faulting anyone on that, but I don't believe he's being used correctly at this point in time. It's because they're going by the same mythology in regards to these guys, which is we're going to bury the guy to the point where he cashes in, and then we're going to start doing something with him. They did it with Daniel Bryan. They did it with CM Punk. They did it with the majority of the MITB guys before that. Hell, they even did it with The Miz before he cashed in. That's
What?
Burhan,
what
I
they do.
asked you before to believe in the Shield. I'm asking you now
No,
to
no, it's
believe
not,
in
it's not that I
Ziggler.
don't believe in the guy, and this is what people don't get. I'm not being negative here, but there has to be the thing that I'm worried about is what's going to happen with the product in the future. I'm not looking at the here and now and the big buy rates. I'm looking at building people and using these guys as the building blocks to build new stars because you've got an abundance of a mid card at the moment. You've got an IC champion who has no one that he's facing at this point in time. He's not. They don't even have set in stone what he's going to be doing, apart from the fact where he's got an on again, off again feud with Sheamus, who's also got his hands with the Shield.
Yeah.
And
Well,
has
he also has a movie coming out. I think Wade Barrett's doing just fine as far as development, and they do have. It does seem like they're going to go with him and Sheamus. Maybe they're just not sure. Maybe they, that's not a problem with what their confidence is with Wade Barrett. That's just a problem with
well,
the
they
organization
had
of
him.
the creative team.
They had him with no, but that's the thing. The creative team don't know apart from like the solid matches, the ones that they believe are going to work, like Cena versus The Rock and Taker versus Punk and Triple H versus Lesnar. They are not concentrating on the other aspects of the card. They think, well, we can just throw those all together, and that's where they're going wrong.
Well, before we get too off topic and stray away from the WrestleMania talk, Peyton, what is your fantasy booking card?
Okay, well, let's get going here. For the pre-show, you got to get a lot of people in there because you like to have everybody get a payday. And also you want to start things, with your pre-show. You might want to keep it a little lighthearted. I think that's generally what they do. You don't put on a really serious match. There might be good wrestling, but so for my match, I have a 6-man lumberjack tag match. It is 3-man band against Santino Marella, Great Khali, and Hornswoggle. And everyone else who's not on the card at some other point in the show gets to be the lumberjacks around the ring. And this would just be a silly little comedy match. 3MB would ultimately end up just getting their butts kicked by everyone in and outside of the ring, so everyone can have a good laugh at 3-man band's expense. And it could end with Hornswoggle doing the tadpole splash or whatever. Just a whatever match. Then, to open the show, we're going to start things off hot with a Money in the Bank match. The return of Money in the Bank at WrestleMania. I would have 10 participants in this match. I would have Cody Rhodes, Damian Sandow, Dolph Ziggler, Jack Swagger, Antonio Cesaro, R-Truth, Chris Jericho, Sheamus, Big E Langston, and Ryback. Now, pay special attention that both Dolph Ziggler and Big E Langston are in there, because Big E would be a big help to Dolph Ziggler, allowing him to win that match. And this Money in the Bank is even more important than the Money in the Bank he had, because this Money in the Bank could be used for any title, not just the World Heavyweight. He could use that for the WWE title now. If they feel like they need to have it explained, they could have Booker T come out and say, "Sorry, playa, I can't have you having both of those, so you're gonna have to give me one of them." And of course, he would give up the World Heavyweight title one. So we move on to our Intercontinental title match. This would be Wade Barrett, the interim champion, going into a match with Randy Orton. Now, the big key in this match that I would see happening is a double turn, very similar to the Steve Austin Bret Hart match from WrestleMania 13. Throughout this match, you would have Randy Orton become a heel and Wade Barrett become babyface, ultimately ending with Randy Orton winning the title from Wade Barrett and becoming Intercontinental Champion, and allowing people to get behind the babyface Wade Barrett chasing for the title afterwards. Then we would have Kane versus Daniel Bryan for the tag titles. Yeah, so it would be a singles match for the tag titles, so we can finally determine who is the tag team champions. And just the follow-up from that is the following night on Raw, that person can defend their title against whatever tag team, primetime players, Usos, whoever you want to put it in. And of course, they're going to get their ass kicked because it's a 2-on-1 match, or you can have them maybe fend off a couple tag teams, but ultimately they're going to lose against the numbers game to a real tag team, and you could actually start getting a tag division going again. And that way you also don't make, Kane and Daniel Bryan look weak by losing it to another team. Good way to save face with that. Next, we would have our World Heavyweight title match. I would still have Alberto Del Rio being the World Heavyweight champion, and he would be going against Mark Henry. Perhaps they could have set it up the same way with the Elimination Chamber making the number one contender, and Mark Henry would have won it. And we could just continue Alberto Del Rio being the triumphant babyface over the Giant, since he was doing that with Big Show. So now he goes in there against Mark Henry, and Del Rio would win and retain and have his big WrestleMania moment conquering the Giant. Next, I would have the U.S. title match. And at some point over their long feud that they've had, I probably would have had it happen at the end of last year. Miz won that U.S. title, and it's on the Miz now. And he goes into WrestleMania facing Kofi Kingston. And this would possibly be one of the unexpected better matches of the night. And I think this would be Kofi's big moment, getting a huge win against the Miz in a hard-fought battle and having the best title run of his career so far.
Are they both baby faces, or did somebody turn?
I don't know if I would have kept Miz heel. I mean, I think there's potential for a Miz babyface, but it's not working right now. That's a good question. I probably would have kept Miz heel and had Miz go into this as a heel. It makes it better for Kofi Kingston winning that way. So, moving on. What do I want to put next? Okay. So, next, we got to get the Divas on here somewhere. And those who listened to the show last week, was it last week or was it the week before, know my feelings about the current state of the Divas division. So, we're not going to have a match. We're going to have, since we are in MetLife Stadium, a stadium known for having its football teams, Giants and the Jets, we're going to have a Divas cheerleading competition.
Yeah.
We trot all the beautiful divas out in their cheerleading outfits, and they can perform for everybody. You can get Trish Stratus involved. You can get whatever else. You can get Tori Wilson back. Do whatever you want. And just have a little bit of fun with that while everyone goes and gets a beer and uses the bathroom.
I wonder if any of the like Fit Finley and them ever take offense to that.
I think they know their place. Anyway, next. All right, now follow me with this one. Somewhere around SummerSlam of last year. Oh, I just started. It can't be that bad. Somewhere around SummerSlam last year, Vince McMahon realizes that he's just getting too old to be doing what he's doing now, and it's getting close to time for him to retire. But who does he leave the WWE to? And then we start getting all types of people coming in with their bids to be the person to take over WWE. You could have Paul Heyman. You could have Triple H. You could have John Laurinaitis. I'm sure there's plenty of other great options. Ultimately, the big payoff to this, or at least for the time being, would be at the Royal Rumble with a match between Triple H and John Laurinaitis. And pretty much the stipulation is whoever loses says, all right, I'm out of your way. You can do what you need to do. Triple H wins. And, there you could have whatever kind of chicanery going on in that match to make it important. But Triple H would win. And he's like, yes, finally I have the company. And the next night on Raw, Triple H is in the ring getting ready to sign a contract. But suddenly, here comes the money! Shane McMahon returns. And he says, no, this is mine. And this all builds to a match between Triple H and Shane McMahon at WrestleMania. Now, who wins this one?
Zack Ryder.
That I think it would be telling of who wins this one. I think that's up to Vince McMahon who would win. It's probably going to be Triple H, honestly. But it would be nice just to have Shane come back and just make one final appearance and say, hey, I'm not taking over. I'm gone. This is going to be Triple H and Stephanie's.
Yeah, I would think that Triple H would have to go in as the babyface in that match.
Well, I think they would both have their supporters. I think that's something where you could do a divided camp, Team Triple H and Team Shane.
Yeah, but I think
there's a lot of big Shane fans out there.
If anybody's going to get the predominant one, the kids probably would go for Triple H.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It would probably be a split audience between, the new school fans and the older school fans.
There would be one group going Triple H and the other one going Cena sucks.
Well, speaking of John Cena, that brings me to my next match.
Good transition.
John Cena and Mick Foley are in the ring together. Cena's doing his pal around thing, saying congratulations to Mick Foley. This is a long time coming, well deserved. And then the Shield's music hits. The Shield are coming down to the ring, and they beat them up. They just beat the living shit out of them. So, the next week, John Cena and Mick Foley are back out in the ring, and they're like, why don't you guys come out? Come out now, calling them out. The Shield comes down, but as soon as the Shield gets to the ring, the lights go out. The Shield are going to get caught in their own game. But when the lights come on, it's The Undertaker. And this sets up a 6-man tag between the Shield, Undertaker, John Cena, and Mick Foley. And I'm going to say this. The Shield pins The Undertaker.
You lost me.
Really?
I'm one of those.
The Shield are
never
on
lose
fire right now. Well, if he's going to lose, who better to lose to than to put over not even just one, but 3 of the brightest young stars that they have right now?
I disagree. In regards to the Shield taking it, I don't think they should take the streak. Someone does need to take the streak, but I think it needs to be an individual. I don't think it needs to be taken that cheaply.
It's not taken cheaply. How is that cheaply? Listen, The Undertaker could... The Undertaker's not looking so good.
I know he's not looking so good, but on the same level, it would rather... It's like with HBK versus Taker. When HBK got retired by Taker, or when HBK retired Flair, it was a one-on-one. It meant something. Having like the team take a streak by brutalizing him and the other 2 guys in the ring, it's not it doesn't mean that Taker streak's gone. It
does mean he's gone if he's the one who's pinned. That's why it's important. It can't be Foley or Cena who's taking the fall. It needs to be Undertaker.
Yeah, but other guys are involved. That's what I mean.
So what? They weren't there to save him. Undertaker was on his own. He had to kick out of that pin or find a way to win because he's the Taker. That's what Undertaker does.
For me, that wouldn't end Taker's story. I feel that it would have been a half-full match.
How's this any different than when he's defended it in a gimmick match before? He's done handicap matches. He's done...
I know, but back in those times, the streak didn't actually mean that much. It's only now that it means the what it means.
10 years ago.
When he was facing, say, like the Big Show and Albert, when Nathan Jones was supposed to be in the ring with him, no one was actually sitting there talking about the streak.
Yeah, but what about when he faced the 2 Ortons? They were definitely talking about the streak by that point.
Yeah, true. But again, to me, it's just if he lost it in that sort of fashion, it wouldn't. You see, I wouldn't even have an issue if it was like Ambrose defeating Taker for the streak. on his own, or Rollins defeating Taker, for the streak on his own, because it would mean a lot more to them. It just seems too cheap, and I don't think the guys would get elevated from that.
Okay,
That's my point.
whatever, dude. The Shield would not get elevated from pinning the Undertaker. You tell yourself that.
Well, what's your next match?
I believe all I have left is my WWE title match. And this would be The Rock going in as the champion, defending it against Brock Lesnar. Now, this doesn't need to be a particularly fantastic match. We have lots of other cool matches on here. It's just going to be a spectacle. And I think these two guys could make it that. You know, they can get those moments to get the crowd really into, oh my gosh, we're seeing The Rock versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. They have a really good match. I think The Rock is going to come out just a little bit stronger on this, though, and get the pin. However, it's going to open up the rage inside Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is going to snap, as we've seen him doing so many times lately, and just lay the mother of all beatdowns on The Rock, including breaking his arm. And then, I'm here to show the world. Dolph Ziggler comes out, cashes in his new Money in the Bank that's good for any title, pins The Rock, and becomes WWE champion to close the show. And that's my WrestleMania.
For everybody out there in the comments, if you want to voice your opinions on all three of our cards, as well as what you would do in comparison to what we've suggested and what WWE is going to be bringing this year, make sure you leave those comments, and we'll try to comment on your suggestions throughout the week and so on and so forth. That just leaves plugs. And of course, the Sign Me Up initiative. Bring a Smark Out Moment sign to any kind of a wrestling event and send me a picture or a video of it, and I'll put it up on the site. Thank you to those that have participated in anything when it comes to the internet wrestling community outreach, whether it's the comments, whether it's the donations like John Bruce and Robert. Anybody, who does any of that kind of stuff. I really appreciate it and everything. Check out the other websites and all that you see in the outro. All this kind of stuff. We might as well even just put like one graphic up that says the usual shit and then end it in 5 seconds. But let's go with Peyton.
All right, well, I come from the Keeping Kayfabe podcast and other wrestling podcasts. We just did something really fun this week. We did March Madness, a 64-slot elimination tournament where we determined the best wrestler theme song. You can find myself, my co-host Brandon, and we had Mr. Burhan and Mr. Anthony Mango both with us on that show. So definitely check that one out, and I think you'll be extra surprised at who the winner is on that one. So keepingkayfabe.com. You can also find it on the Facebook, on the YouTubes, on the Twitters, on iTunes, and all that junk. I also come from Newbie TV, which is a website with original web content. We do videos influenced from video games and other nerd cultures. You can find series such as Two Oafs with Lawn Chairs, which is about two Southern yokels searching for ways to get money, which all involve certain things from video games, such as going to Portal's Aperture Labs in order to sell their bodies to science, or opening a bodega in the ghetto of Grand Theft Auto. So you can find that at new-b.tv, and you can find that on Facebook and Twitter and all that other good stuff too. Thanks.
Brian?
As usual, nerdgenius.com. The site's gonna have a revamp by this Sunday, so basically it's gonna have its own little reboot. All begins again, so to speak. michaelburhan.com, enigmaentertainment.co.uk. We're currently having a donation drive, so for those who want to donate, just like the awesome Piano Man, towards my movie that I'm making, please do. A Kickstarter campaign is going to be starting this Sunday as well. I've got 2 new shows that are going to be debuting soon. One called Wrestle Ramblings, where I play a character called Mike the Mark, who takes the piss out of everything wrestling related. And the second show, which is Rewriting the Book. For those of you who haven't seen the pilot, go on to youtube.com/The Nerd Genius. That's NERDGENIOUS. And follow me on Twitter, Facebook, the usual stuff. And also, IGotGameplay.com. which is a I Got Gameplay podcast, which is a sort of a sub of Fanboys Anonymous. So check all that stuff out, and keep basically listening to this podcast, listen to Keeping Kayfabe, and listen to anything that we're doing that's wrestling related. Because even though we basically have different ideas about how the product should be run, we all care about it. We're all passionate, just like each and every one of you. So we want to hear your opinions, we want to hear your comments, and we want to, we want this audience to grow, and it's growing. It is, from when I first started off doing Smack Talk with Tony, we only had such a marginal audience, and to see how much it's grown, and the amount of people that are sitting there and sharing our views and telling us how much they care about the product, it means so much. It shows that even though wrestling has its detractors, that it's just something extremely awesome, something that we're all passionate and that we all love. So, thanks, guys.
Amen. That does us in for episode 69. Next week on the docket, we have the typical Ask Him and hot tags, and the specialty post is going to be a top rope list of the best WrestleMania moments of all time. So stay tuned for that one. With episode 70, we will see you next time, because this is yet another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out. Adios, everybody.
Outro!
Cha-ching.
Outro! I'm wearing a toupee. I think my daughter's cute. This is an outro, baby. Who knows incest? Yeah.
Cha-ching.
I don't remember that being the lyrics of Donald Trump's theme.